all new. AM1150 WTMP.com.
I didn't bring my glasses, but I can adjust mine. So you gonna put that over there? Okay. Is that my good side? I set it somewhere. Where's my phone right there?
All right, here we go. It's Porch Talk Radio on WTMP. It's 1 o'clock. Live. No, you're not confused. This is not the voice you're used to. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer all these years of Porch Talk Radio, the voice you never hear and the face you never see. Eddie Adams, our fearless leader, is at the parade today. He is, among many other things, in the chief pirate of the Grand Krewe de Libertalia. Yep, and so he's staged out at the
Gasparilla.
The fiasco on Bayshore Boulevard.
Yeah.
Waiting for the parade to get started today. We're going to hear from Eddie in just a minute. Gabriel Phillips is here.
Live.
Live, and so we're going to do our best to riff and kill time until we hear
productively.
From Eddie. Yeah, and
we're productive about this.
Eddie's going to have our Action Jackson on the scene report about the Gasparilla parade today. Gabriel and I have bailed for various reasons. I don't know about you, but I'm not in the mood to put up with the parking.
You know, as the gray hairs appear, wisdom shows up, and you go, why the hell do I go do all that when I go find something else to do in my life? Now, God bless all the people that are out there and pouring millions and millions of dollars into Uber and Lyft and all that. God bless you all. But after a few years of all that, you kind of go, no. In fact, I remember just 5 years ago, the police on TV telling us that they were going to help control the crowd better, and there's going to be less peeing on people's hedges around the parade.
I think they accomplished that.
Yeah, got rid of the hedges.
No, we've done the various parades for years. Those of you who've listened to Porch Talk Radio forever, and this is our 10th year.
Ta-da! We're still the number one rated show.
Yes.
How about that?
You know, amazing. Those evil Republicans. What are you going to say?
You know, we're the ones that keep listening, keep having people giving them information, and I believe as long as you're willing to share the gospel or the good news, one way or another, it's up to people to make their own decision in their mind and decide, you know what, that sounds good to me, that sounds right, and if you don't like it, go research it, please. We never said we were the voice of all knowledge, although we got a pretty good amount of that, but you're welcome to go look it up, and after you look it up and you realize they're telling the truth, it's real what they're saying, oh my goodness, maybe, and that's when a lot of Democrats have that Santa Claus moment when they realize Santa Claus is not real. The baloney they've been listening to on CNN for years has been lies. And then you got to grow up.
And we're not here to convince anybody to convert
Absolutely
anybody.
not. If common sense isn't working,
right.
We're sorry. We can't help you.
We're just another bunch of stupid media
yahoos
that are putting our clickbait out.
Clickbait.
And CNN wants you to click their click, and NBC wants you to click their click, and the Washington Post and the New York Times.
ABC,
and the LA
CBS, NBC, right. And if you looked at their talking points, they're all the same. Isn't that weird?
And we're happy to, probably the only media people that will admit to you that we're the same. So we're here to give you a different perspective on Porch Talk Radio.
So it's time to put your seatbelts on.
Yeah, exactly. So
have we heard from our fearless leader?
No, Eddie's going to call in
at random.
Gets around to it.
Tell him to put his drink down.
But we're going to have some interesting fun today. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about the history of Porch Talk Radio. Last week was the Black Heritage Festival downtown.
That was nice. We were in that van.
Yep.
That was the nicest we've had it. Period. Actually,
in a long time. The sound. Well, that and the fact that the bands hadn't started yet.
That's true, and the van actually had AC that was kind of working. Yeah. I was impressed with that. That was a good setup. It worked out well. We saw a lot of good people. What was that lady, that queen with the tiara? She had been just crowned
Miss
Mrs.
Pinellas.
Miss, very nice, very sharp lady, pretty darn cute. And she gave us a talk on what she's about. And, you know, for all of you people that believe that this is just such a racist nation, she was black. And she had a tiara. Miss Universe, those been picked Miss Universe. Oh, yeah, she's black.
Yeah.
Oh, Miss America, she's black.
So we started
So,
the
yeah.
very first.
Now, we still got foods out there,
The,
so
the
not
very
just counting
first
them.
Porch Talk Radio show was really had all the potentials to be a fiasco. If you've not been around forever, we've done Porch Talk Radio for 10 years. We did radio for 3, we did TV for 4, and now we're just over 3 years on TMP again here.
And we've always been the #1 rated wherever we've gone, and not just because Eddie is such a great orator, speaker, as myself, but we just don't stop on bringing the truth to your front door, and people go, wow, that's different. That's
Well,
weird.
we're more than happy to not politicize a bunch of stuff too.
It's just common sense.
The story of the first Porch Talk Radio show at the Black Heritage Festival is kind of funny. We were discussing with another radio station we'll not mention whether we should do and how we could do this thing
And
called
Eddie and I wore sport coats, I remember that.
Porch Talk Radio. For those of you who don't know or haven't been around forever, I'm Tim Horton. I'm the executive producer of the Porch Talk Radio show, and I did a career in radio for 20 years before I retired and got out because it's a silly job and a silly life and a silly career, but I was a radio executive. And so I was friends with Eddie Adams Jr. for a lot of years, and in a conversation one day, he said, you know, I have all these things that I would like to discuss. I go to all these meetings.
You're listening to the birth of Porch Talk
And,
Radio.
exactly, and, but, you know, we need a bigger platform. And I said, well, you know, it's my background, it's my history. I can teach you how to host a radio show. Or actually, I think the first conversation was, let's be a guest on a bunch of other people's radio shows. And he did some, and it was fun. And so we were discussing, you know, how do we do the show? And remembering this was 10 years ago, it wasn't real popular to have a black guy, Republican, on the radio. J.C. Watts was the only member of Congress
Awesome guy out of Oklahoma.
long before Allen West, long before Michael Steele was the chairman of the Republican National Party. It was a long time. It is before the Tea
How about
Party.
Mr. Herman?
Before, exactly. And so we said, you know, what we need to do is we need to diversify this. If we're going to really freak people out, we really need to freak people out. What we need
Shock
to
and
do
awe.
is find a conservative Republican Hispanic guy that can be on the and will co-host the two. And I said, well, I know a guy named Gabriel, and so we all got together. We had lunch.
He's actually dressed that up quite a bit. Yeah, we went through lots of negotiations with contracts and such. And one day somebody at my job said, hey, have you ever been on radio? And I said, I know what it is. They said, that's perfect. We got something for you. And the next thing I know, I was talking to Eddie Adams Jr. said, here, if you'll just sit there, watch me, and we'll just do this over and over, and we'll get it.
Sooner or later, you'll figure it out.
And we're still trying to figure it out.
Exactly. And so, literally Tuesday, before the Tampa Bay Black Heritage Festival 10 years ago, the radio station we were on at the time said, we have this booth and this space and the ability to broadcast live from the Black Heritage Festival. Y'all interested,
Y'all.
so to speak. And I either was a genius and or an idiot and said, yeah, sure, this will be fun.
Perfect.
And so we did, and we had a table and 2 chairs and 2 microphones, and the signal came, the hand signal came from the guy running the microphones on the board, and the finger was pointed at Eddie, which indicates go, you're live, and there it was.
And we started yapping, and to this day we can't quite remember all we said because luckily there's video.
That's right. That's
We
why
did- we
God
just-
created video and
We
YouTube.
just started talking and smiling, and someone would say, "You're on radio. You don't really have to smile that much." Oh,
And if
okay.
you, and just as an aside, if you would like to see the travesty that is the very first ever Porch Talk Radio show, it is on our website at
The original?
porchtalkradio.com.
The first one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So if you go to the website, click the navigation bar, see past shows, will have the most current shows. The other clickable link is to interesting historic shows, and on that page, it's the top
Excuse
of
me,
the
is
page.
that historic or hysterical?
Hysterical,
Okay,
historical.
just wondering.
Right. But you can go see it, and it's not nearly as bad.
Oh, yes, we're so
as
much
we're
smoother and
portraying.
professional as we are today. Absolutely. We are top of the shelf here, buddy.
So we did 3 years of radio, and then they got tired of us. And then we did 4 years of TV, which was an adventure. Again, what do we do next? And I said, well, you know, I have a little history with this. We could go do a TV show. And so we started that fiasco and learned that.
Whenever the light turns red, start talking, smiling, and keep talking, smiling until the red light goes off on the camera.
Exactly. It's not rocket science.
Anything you do or say will be held against you for perpetuity.
It's Porch Talk Radio, by the way, on WTMP. This is the voice that you almost never hear. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of the
Find us on
show.
Facebook. Where are we on Facebook?
On Porch Talk Radio. Yep.
And we have a website, the same, is
And-
it .com?
And porchtalkradio.com.
Oh my
we don't,
goodness.
We don't
You can get
confuse
us,
people, we don't make it complicated.
you can get us 24/7, and for those of you that do that, God bless you.
Exactly. But so, you know, the show was an idea, and we've gotten it 10 years down the road. We are not a guest-driven show. We've had lots of interesting people, and when you hear us talk to and interview local folks that we love, I got a text a minute ago from Candy Lowe. She's listening, and
Sweetheart, she's awesome.
she said,
Love you.
"What's wrong with the show?"
Excuse me?
Candy
Smarty
and
pants.
Candy and I are buddies for a long time. What's wrong with the show?
It's these
Something-
smart ones that always give us trouble.
Something must be wrong because Tim's voice is on the radio.
Exactly.
But occasionally we had some interesting guests. We had way back. People remember the Tom Hanks movie, The Captain, about the Maersk that was hijacked off the coast of Somalia in Africa.
That was a year after we started, then, was it? That's
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah. And
When did we start? No, it wasn't that long. Oh, crap.
No.
What am I saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
we started 10 years ago, so that's
yeah,
like
9,
2010.
yeah, late 9. And the real
Pocket Boy.
The
Pocket Knife Boy was his
we
name.
always refer to him as Pocket Knife Boy. The real captain of the Maersk that they made the Tom Hanks movie about, his name was Richard Phillips, if memory serves me right. But he was based, he lives here in Tampa Bay.
And he
Or-
saved the
or
boat.
Did at the
Well,
time.
the crew, I guess.
And he saved the boat, and he saved the crew, and they made the movie, the Tom Hanks movie, based on his life, his story. And the reason we call him Pocket Knife Boy, because it was his ship. He knew it like the back of his hand, in the dark, like a blind guy. He knew where every knob, switch, and dial and doorway was on his ship. And the way he defended the ship in the story was because they don't have weapons. Now that rule has changed. A lot of these commercial ships have weapons to defend themselves against these smaller pirate idiots, which still exist today, by the way.
And actually, aside from the fact that he did save the day,
But he did it with a pocket knife.
that was the first attack on one of our ships in 200 years. And if you guys look at your history, look it up. 200 years, what was happening before then? We were being attacked all the time by pirates. And it took an American president saying, I'm sick of this crap. We did not have a navy at that time. That was 1700s. So he had a bunch of people with money and big ships get together and say, let's go get them.
And sent the Marines, which is where that song comes from. What is it? From the halls of Montezuma to the, yeah, that song.
Tripoli. And we pushed the pirates back. Oh, by the way, you know who the pirates were? Muslims. They had been pirating they've been going after people and then killing them and taking the stuff. So we fast forward to 2009, And the Somalis kind of forgot that. They said, here's a ship that has an American flag. Let's go get them.
And to this day, to one degree or another, this Somali, the pirating of ships off the Somali coast of Africa continues because the shipping lanes are abnormally close to shore, uniquely to that part of the world. And so they can hop on those little skiff ships, if you've watched the news and seen or heard any of this, and actually reach the ships in ways that they couldn't offshore the coast of Africa, offshore the coast of South America, offshore.
And there's
the coast
actually a
of
video
Hong
out there
Kong and
about
Australia.
5-7 years ago that showed Somalis tried to come after a U.S. one of our warships, and they just thought they would just open their guns and just shoot at our warships. And you know what we did?
Yeah, it was not pretty.
We shot them. We actually blew their boat up.
So, we have had some interesting, guests over the
Yes.
years, but the show's never been interview driven. It's always about what's going on locally. Those of you listening to this show know Eddie Adams really well, to know that he's involved with
Everything.
every fool thing that there is. And so,
King's Academy. I know he does.
He's-
King's Academy, the
well,
Christian Academy School.
Right, for
I
the
remember the
school.
scholarships. We were out there for some of the
but he,
scholarships
goes,
they do.
but he goes to all the board meetings. He has regular contact with the sheriff, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Black Advisory Committee, but he has regular contact with the sheriff, the TPD, the various mayors over the years, as well as the school board. A couple of weeks ago, he had a meeting with Jeff Akins, the Hillsborough County School Board superintendent, about one thing or another. So he's really plugged in. And in fact, if you heard his little rant about the election of the next Hillsborough County School superintendent
Well, the
last
black people
week,
were allowed to show up and look, and that was pretty much the end of the result. Is after they looked and the white people had already picked who was going to be the next person, then the black people were allowed to leave.
well,
It was very nice.
I'm not sure our buddy Tamara Schamberger would characterize it that way, Gabriel, but
just being real. Come on.
let's not
Moving along.
let's not ruin the 10-year anniversary of the show by burning the show down. Eddie, call quick. Gabriel's out of control.
But Eddie was very good in just calling off the points that he saw, and then the fact that he brought it to everyone's attention that he was told in advance he was going to get it anyway. So the rest is just a show for the heck of for the media to say, oh, look how fair this is, even though everybody already knew.
True or not, it tends to look that way. So while we're waiting for Eddie to call, we're going to do, on this day in history.
Oh boy, it's awfully early for that. I'm not sure if I've had my first drink yet.
Yeah, well,
Moving along.
It's a feature that I suggested all these years ago.
Mamma mia.
Eddie and I are the only ones that like it. When Willie Lawson's hanging around, he rolls his eyes. You can hear Gabriel roll his eyes. But we've got him in it. And interestingly, this weekend.
Interestingly.
There's all kinds of interesting stuff. So,
Yes.
on this day in history, in 1776, the first national memorial was ordered by Congress. It was the Continental Congress that authorized the first National Revolutionary War Memorial in honor of Brigadier General Richard Montgomery. If you've been to D.C., like I have many times, and you like going to see the memorials, something besides the Washington and the Lincoln, the rest of them are kind of littered and scattered around. You have to be sort of purposeful to go see all the memorials. But the Revolutionary War Memorial is really, really interesting in the sense that it's the age that it is, but it set the precedent for all the stuff that we see now. In 1905, this day in history, the world's largest diamond was found in the Premier mine in Pretoria, South Africa. I actually, many years ago, took a tour of that mine, not nearly in 1905, by the way. But
You've actually been there.
I've actually been there. The famous diamond that was found, the largest ever, was 1.3 pounds, and it was like a chunk of concrete up off the curb. And they cut it up into 4 big pieces and a bunch of smaller diamonds. But the 3 biggest pieces you probably have heard of. The mine was owned by Sir Thomas Cohen, who was British, of course, because in the day
They owned it all.
South Africa was a British protectorate, of course.
Are they still not?
Not anymore. No, they got their freedom a long time ago. Independence, yay. But the largest residual finished pretty diamond is now known as the Star of Africa. And the second, the first, and the second largest stone was called the Star of Africa II, and we'll skip over what the third largest one was called because that's sort of obvious. But the Star of Africa was gifted to the British Crown, actually gifted to Elizabeth's daddy, King Edward. And so the Star of Africa is in the scepter.
Scepter.
So when they do the next coronation,
Scepter. That stick with the thing at the end of it? Like Indiana
that's
Jones.
That's the technical description. Yeah,
Like-
the fancy stick with the stone on the top.
Like Indiana Jones. I got it.
Yeah,
I got my history down.
So that's where the Star of Africa is, and all of those three stones are in the Tower of London. So if you're a tourist in London, you want to go see the Star of Africa, you can take the tour, but anyway, that's where it was. So that stone was discovered on this day in history in 1905.
And that's a big stone they have in London then, right?
Yep. On this day in 1924, the first Winter Olympics was held in Charmont, France, in the Alps of France.
Wait a minute, how big was that stone? Did it say how many carats?
Well, I think I have it in my notes here.
But it's probably a big hunk, 100 carats or something ridiculous.
Oh no, it was insane.
1,000
the original rock uncut that they dug out of the dirt was 1.3 pounds. Here it is. It was 3,106 carats.
Jeez, and I'm still making payments on just a .003.
Yeah, when you got married a couple weeks ago, your wife didn't get a 3,000 carat diamond ring. I know that because it would be so big she'd need the fancy stick with the thing on it.
Yeah, a few people. Yeah, I'm still making payments. Anyway, moving along.
Okay, moving along. Here's one that's fun. 1935, this weekend in history, the first canned beer went on sale, and everybody at Walmart's been excited ever since.
Walmart.
And the first canned
Remember
beer,
the tall boy?
And the first canned beer was actually done here in Merca, not in Germany, Richmond, Virginia.
You know, they still have malt liquor, don't they?
Kruger Brewery. Kruger's finest beer in a can.
And to that, there's only 3 beers today that are owned and made in America. If anyone knows what those 3 beers are, feel free to call in.
That's a trivia question because everything's owned by Ambev now.
But there's only 3 beers.
This is Porch Talk Radio.
All the rest are in Denmark.
TMP. The voice you never hear. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of the Porch Talk Radio show, filling in for Eddie Adams.
And Gabriel is live.
At the parade, and we're waiting for him to call in and give us an Action Jackson live on the scene report of the insanity of Gasparilla.
They've got to have the music booming by now.
And Gabriel Phillips is here, your co-host.
Absolutely.
This day in history, 1949, the first Emmy Awards ceremony was held. That's the TV awards.
Emmy Award. Oh, this is where they get to bash and become political.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know where and why, just stupid trivia, you know where and why the name Emmy was used?
Emmy.
Where did Emmy come from?
Okay, folks, we've got our thinking caps on.
Oscar for the movies was a person. Emmy is not a person, I'll just tell you. Emmy is a feminized spin on the word Emmy, which is the component element piece inside the black and white TV cameras. There was an image capture.
Okay.
In everybody's cell phone now, when you take pictures or video, there's an electronic chip that converts the images into digital for your camera. But in those days, on those early black and white TV cameras, there was that equivalent, and it was called an
So if
image.
your eyes are rolling around going, who cares? Yes, exactly.
Okay. So who cares? Here's one. Okay, so Eddie's on the phone?
Yes,
Okay.
it is on the phone.
Bring it on.
We've been riffing and waiting time, so here we go. Tell us how everything's going at the Gasparilla Parade.
All right, as you guys know, the reason I'm not there live during the show is, the Pirates have invaded Tampa, and of course we do this every year, but it's been so much fireworks. Hold on a second.
I wonder if he went into the porta potty to keep it quiet.
Yeah. There have been more fireworks going on down at TMP this morning, from what I gathered, and that's happening down here at Bayshore Boulevard, so and the parade. But I have to say this because I know that I have listeners who have been following me on the school board process, and they know that I said back in December who was going to win. If anybody listened to me, what I was saying, was the fact that I, being pretty much nobody, I'm not important, I'm not a decision maker, I'm not an elected official, but I should not have been able to tell you in December who was going to be the next superintendent of Hillsborough County Schools. I'm just saying, I don't have that kind of power. Unless somebody knew, made some arrangement, and then made it happen. I'm not saying the guy's a good guy, a bad guy. I don't know him. All I know is what I heard at the interviews. From what I heard at the interviews, I personally thought Pete Licata was the best person for what I said, from what they said, and from what I saw. But, of course, we all now know that, and I'm going to say it, I don't know how the fix was in, but the fix was in. The rest of it was a horse and pony show made to make it look like they were going through the process.
But they invited you, right?
No, I got a text. That told me in December who was going to win this whole thing.
But then you got a chance to go see it through just to be there only.
Well, the reason, like I said on one of the other shows, somebody cut the light on, and the light was shining on Addison Davis. They didn't shine the light on nobody else. They said this guy got the inroad to being the next superintendent. And I'm saying to myself, well, how is this guy? And then I started hearing about this guy and some of the stuff that was going on about this guy. And so I said, okay, well, let me look. So once I started looking, then I said, well, let me go see. So I went and spent 8 hours pretty much, when they had 51 and boiled it down to 13. Then I listened to the interviews when they went from the 13, to 7, and then which ended up being 6, and then they went down to 3. Well, this whole way, nobody has dispelled the fact that, it was a certain correlation or congregation of school board members who had pretty much predetermined that Addison Davis was going to get the job. I'm just saying. I'm saying not only did it look like it happened, because when I looked at the evaluations for Harrison Peters, 3 of the sitting school board members, now this guy's been here 3 years, gave this guy 0 for the evaluation. I mean, I'm just saying. Now, same 3 that gave Harrison 0 gave Addison Davis 6. So the highest you can get was a 6, the lowest you can get was a 0. So if all 3 of them gave Addison Davis 6s and gave Peterson 0s, and I'm just saying, I'm saying what it looked like. I'm saying if it looked like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, pretty much it's a damn duck. I'm saying. Open for other conversation.
Well, it is interesting that both on and off the air, you and I and Gabriel have been discussing this since, first of the year when you were talking about it. So,
Yeah.
You're either Madam Cleo and we need to ask you, who do we lay our nickels and dimes down on that Super Bowl bet we're working on, or it's coincidental, one or the other, right?
Well, again, when I was listening, I mean, you want to talk about being impressed with somebody? I was impressed with Peter LaCosta because he pretty much said, okay, every problem you got here in Hillsborough, I've dealt with, and at the same scale. We got as many black folks as y'all do. You know, we have black schools to turn around. We got Hispanic folks to deal with. We got a huge student body. We got a huge population of teachers. And I mean, you're not different from us, and we're doing good. We're doing better. And it's because of the work that I have done. And they asked us for examples. And he gave them examples where he said, West Palm Beach is a hoity-toity community, very affluent citizens, and they had a school in which they had to hire a principal for. And of course, being predominantly white and with a white rich community, they wanted somebody white to be the principal at the school. But he knew that the best person for this job at that time was a black female. And that's who he hired. Of course, he got some grief. You know, of course, a lot of people at first didn't like her. But he said she's kicking butt, and that school is doing gangbang right now. So his proof was examples of stuff that I've done where I had a hard decision to make, but I made the hard decision. And it involved, you know, hiring somebody who he could have hired somebody white and been very, very easily, you know, everybody's fan favorite. But he made tough decisions. And it kind of impressed me because, you know, everybody supposed to came up with personal examples of stuff they've done based upon the question they were being asked. Well, every time they asked this man a question, he had a good answer. Now, I don't know if he had the questions, you know, before his experiences at being a superintendent had taken him down the path the way, you know, these things were very, very easy for him to come up with because he got examples, you know, and good answers for all these questions. Davis had some good answers, but Davis was like a salesman to me. He was a fast talker. He was giving out, you know, stuff that wasn't just answer to the question. He was adding a bunch of other stuff because, again, he only had 42,000 students. They got 215,000 students in Hillsborough. You know, they probably got more teachers in Hillsborough than they had students where he came from. So it wasn't, for me, a good comparison. I mean, everything being apples and oranges and apples being compared to apples and oranges being compared to oranges, I don't think it met the mustard for me. Just from his learning curve, for him to adapt from where he was to where he got to come, unless there is somebody on the outside pulling the strings. That's what it seemed like to me.
So do we circle the wagons, support the guy, move on, and get the job at the school board done? Because we have elections coming up in a couple of months.
Well, let me tell you what I'm going to do. For ever since Jeff Akins has been superintendent of Hillsborough County Schools, I have been meeting with him every 2 months. So because I don't know Davis any more than I knew Jeff before he got the job, I'm going to see if I can set similar arrangements because there's some kind of community input that needs. I mean, I'm concerned, and I don't have any kids in the Hillsborough County school system, you know, but I have been a concerned citizen of this community. And I want to see, and again, I make no bones about it, I want to be black folks, you know, taken care of, and that, you know, is something they have done, you know, because I got involved with a charter school. And charter schools have done a better job to educating and advancing, you know, black young men, you know, than anything else. So that's kind of why I got on the charter school thing, because they were just doing a better job. So maybe, you know, I can meet with this guy, talk about some of the issues that I was been talking about in Hillsborough County for the last couple of years with Jeff. I can continue with him. That's what I'm hoping I'm able to do in the process.
So you have to be careful not to shoot yourself in the foot, even though this was obviously rigged, and they picked who it was going to be before everybody else knew because they want to give them a choice or an option. You need to just kind of just suck it up and say, well, that's what black folks get. We just put up what the white people give us, and try and make the best of this guy. Hopefully next time around, something can change. Although as long as people keep running it, it's still the same old show.
But see, next time, maybe 10 years from now. I mean, we don't know this guy's, you know, tenure, what it's going to be. And like I say, you know, I don't know him, he don't know me. but I will make the effort to talk to him on a regular basis, and whatever guidance, whatever information, whatever knowledge I can share with him, hopefully, that helps everybody out. I don't hold a grudge. I will not. And like you guys know, we've been doing this for 10 years. And over that whole 10-year period, I have not had any grudge matches with anybody. If I talk about somebody, I talk about them. Going about say what I got to say, going on about my business. I don't, beat anybody up every week. So again, it's politics, and I understand politics. So I'm not, surprised by anything that happens.
Well, again, I think just being able to be the better man in all of this after a while, saying, all right, you know what, you're it, so we need to work with you. We need to see what programs you have in mind. We have ideas here in the community. If you'll give you the time of day, Eddie, you know the routine. You work with it. You do the best you can. Bring them on to introduce them to the rest of the peoples here as well, I'm sure, if that's the case. You'll be willing to come out and talk. And then let's just see how it plays out.
Well, I can't get like him. The only reason that I said what I said, in the process was people. I told y'all before, I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so don't tell me no damn secret. If you want to be a secret, then don't tell me, because I got a platform, and that's how they keep the community in the dark, by keeping secrets from you. They don't tell you stuff. Now again, I started this campaign, basically saying, okay, I knew this guy was going to win. I should not have known that this guy who won was going to win. I should not have known. I keep saying that, and that's the point, that I should not have known. But evidently, it was already fixed. It was already rigged. It was already set up for this to happen. So again,
So the takeaway message is, don't tell Eddie anything.
Well, if you're trying to, blindside my community by telling me something,
Exactly.
Don't tell me something, because I've said this before. This ain't like my first time saying that.
Right.
I'm
Well,
just telling you.
and the key point is back to zero, as you glossed by real quickly. But when Jeff Akins was appointed after the princess left town,
Right.
you had no relationship with Jeff. You started from zero. Hi, how are
Right.
you? My name's Eddie Adams. Nice to meet you. And you move forward. You start again from zero, do the same thing, and we'll be back quickly to the same place, hopefully, and that'll be fine.
Well, that's the hope. But like I say, now, I've said to black folks repeatedly, we are our own worst enemy. So they've got some black folks that may be butthurt, about what I said and about what I've been saying, about the process. And I won't take that back. I won't apologize for saying something in December, because there's no way in December my crystal ball had me knowing this guy was going to win unless somebody had already planned for this guy to win.
And I can testify, Eddie, because if that's the case, you and I'd be looking up lotto ticket numbers.
Damn right. Yeah, me, yeah. If I got that kind of power, I'm going to use it.
Yeah! You my new best friend.
Good.
What's the over-under next week, and how much is Kansas City going to win the game by?
Yeah. And see, that's the thing next year. Next year, when I come down, I'm talking about the Gasparilla a little bit. Next year, when we do the Gasparilla, it'll be the day before Super Bowl. So they'll move this parade to Super Bowl weekend, and it'll be on that Saturday, and then the Super Bowl will be that Sunday. So we'll have more to talk about.
It's going to be a madhouse. Traffic in Tampa will be just absolutely insane. I may have to stock up at Walmart with my food, my groceries the week before, so I can just hold up in my place. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have people from all over the world here. Yeah. So it'd be more than just your traditional pirates. It'd be more than just traditional pirates.
Might have real pirates.
And lowlife that hang out on Bayshore. It'll be world-class lowlifes, and they'll be hanging out on Bayshore with us other folks that'll be there.
Well, so the weather is pretty today. It's one of those years where, everything is perfect outside. So how are the crowds, and how's the parade looking? And you guys are what, position 46 or something?
We're 94.
94?
So we should just be making it as the TV goes off. Just as the parade on TV goes off. We should get right under there. So we still should be on TV for our fans who want to see the black crew. It ain't but one. So it's still just us. It's been us for 10 years. No, it's been us for 20 years, because we became the crew in 1991. The last time the Super Bowl was here.
Yeah.
The Liberation Crew.
Yeah, people don't always remember that story. maybe next week when you're live in the studio, we'll repeat that story about how the Grand Krewe de Libertalia came to be and why.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that's interesting because I just kind of got set with a book deal where the story influenced Tampa to the degree that a lot of folks don't know the story and how we got started and the rippling effect that it's had within the community for us getting black members on certain boards and chambers and all kind of groups and organizations that did not exist before we went through this process because the NFL was here and the NFL had a lot of clout, a lot of power, and they could tell rich white folks what to do, which we could not do, and we could not beg up on it, but they could tell them what to do, and so we took it and did more than just got a black crew. We changed the economy and economics for Hillsborough County and black folks here. So we could tell the whole story. But somebody's doing a book. So we're hopefully by next year we'll have the book published with all the information and a lot of the ripples and a lot of the sidebars that happened as a result of us integrating Gasparilla in 1991.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll have to do that next week if we don't have a guest or a segment. We might deep dive into that because the parade's just over and we're still in parade season. That might be interesting to hear the long version of that story. I think it's been 2 or 3 years since you told the long version of that story, so we'll have to remember to do that next week.
And we got a writer, and I can't say on the air who it is yet because we ain't got no contract, we ain't got no deal, we're just working out the process. But it's a good enough story that if it's written, with the Super Bowl being here, we may be able to get somebody to actually sell or publish or do whatever it is to make this part of the Super Bowl, genre and some of the stories being told and talked about. It'd be good to get it talked about on national TV, how the Gasparilla, and the black crew have all meshed and become part of the same process, because of the power and influence of the Super Bowl.
So because of integration in the Gasparilla Parade with the black crew.
Well, when we came in 1991, all of the crews for almost 100 years were white male crews. No women, no blacks, no Hispanic crews. It was all white male crews. And the Super Bowl and the fact that they were doing the Super Bowl in the President's South, and we had this group here called the Ye Mr. Crew. I'm not talking bad about Ye Mr. Crew, but it was Ye Mr. Crew who kind of owned and controlled everything. And at that point in time, Ye Mr. Crew had no black members, and the parade had no black participation. But a lot of tax dollars and city money and money that wasn't Ye Mr. Crew money was being spent on this event. And that's kind of how we was able to make some changes.
It had been, in fairness, it had been that way for a very, very, very long time. It's not like they popped up and said, we're going to exclude people. The parades and the pirate invasion and all this stuff we call Gasparilla has been going on since, the 50s. So it wasn't new. It just needed to evolve.
And part of the process was that a lot of those Ye Mr. Crew members, their fathers and their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers, all these people had been crew members for years and years and years. And it wasn't like you could come up and just join. You had to have some clout. You had to either inherit a slot or have somebody reserve your slot. And that whole part of the process. It wasn't just about money. Because they had black folks with money. It was something that they exclusively wouldn't let people who wasn't in the club.
So you had to have that lineage, that blue blood.
Yeah. And they've done that before. So again, the story's not been told properly, correctly. So the best thing we could do is tell the story with our people, with us telling the story, because usually we don't get to tell our own story. Somebody else usually tell the story. So in that process, this is going to be different. And like I say, with it coming out during the Super Bowl, with the Super Bowl being here in Tampa next year, it may be a good read, if for nothing more than just for folks to know how this whole thing got started.
This is Porch Talk Radio on WTMP. It's Saturday, and your host, Eddie Adams Jr., is down staged in the parade area. He's the chief pirate for the Grand Krewe de Libertalia. Be sure to look for the big red float when it comes by, and maybe
Yeah.
we will or maybe we won't get it on Channel 8. That's an ongoing running gag we've done for 10 years. I'm Tim
Yeah.
Horton, the executive producer of the Porch Talk Radio show, the voice you rarely ever hear and face you never see. Gabriel Phillips is here.
Live.
So it looks like the parade and the crowds are going to be like extra huge today because the weather's so nice.
Yeah, they got expanded this year because the weather is extremely good. It's not raining, it's not cold, and everything that could happen for the environment is great. So they ain't had no spills in the bay. The bay don't stink. They occasionally come down here and it smell like a lot of dead fish. So again, we don't have any of that stuff happening. Everything is good. The police ain't had to shoot nobody. So
So far, so good.
I was just saying, nobody's crapping on anybody's lawn. I mean, you usually hear stories about people using people's lawn for toilets and stuff like that. None of that stuff has happened, at least that I know of at this point. So it's good. It's all fun. And I'll be back next week, so I know you guys can hold it down.
Oh, yeah.
And look forward to talking to the crowd next week and talking about what's happened in the last couple of weeks and do a recap. So you guys have it. Until next week, same bat time, same bat station. This is Eddie. Checking out. You guys got it there at the station. See y'all next week.
Later. God bless.
Glad you called in. It's always fun to do the parade, and Gabriel has gone in years past. I have gone many
I
years.
have walked and I have walked and I have walked that stinking parade, that route, and the buses.
It ain't like you didn't need to exercise.
Exactly.
I thought he was gone already. I have to hang up the phone, this guy.
Okay. Now I'm going. I had to wait to see y'all going to say.
Okay, I got this. Well, I was going to say something about Mr. Peyton, Eli Manning, that is, after 16 seasons, he is finally fading out. And as he is fading out, he gave a really heartfelt goodbye to the media in the last day or so. And it was kind of like he was almost weeping or crying that he was leaving the sport. And they said, they announced after he spoke that he's going to be part of the big hero of football. Next year they're going to put in some Hall of Fame or something like that. But after 16 seasons and 2 Super Bowl wins, he's going to retire out. And folks, you have to feel sad for these people. After all this, they've had their life, they've given into this, but
It's
I'm
over.
sorry, I'm not. His wallet is so thick. If he wants to commit suicide, he can just jump off his wallet.
Climb up on top of the wall.
Yeah, I'm not crying for this boy. He made his money. He did good. His body's probably all wrecked. I am sure he'll be doing those Aleve commercials till the day he drops now. But the head damage thing, all of them went through in the early years with the helmets not being quite so safe. They didn't have airbags in them like they do now, I guess. But, so yeah, Eli Manning, you're gone,
Peyton's gone.
Yeah, Peyton's gone, so.
Archie's been gone.
Yeah.
So I guess we're done with the dynasty of the Mannings.
Out the door they go.
Unless the grandkid is the new star. I don't know.
Well, they got enough money to train them up, that's for darn sure. And then also, I want to talk about that coronavirus thing going on. Folks, they're trying to do that big scare right now here in America about that virus. It's out of China, and they said the virus began out of a seafood market in Wuhan, a city in central China, that also sold wild animals as meat.
Right.
So I want to kind of read through this and tell you it has to do with bats. They were using bats for soup and trying to eat the bats as fresh as possible. And that's where they got the virus back in the beginning.
Yeah, because these coronaviruses are the virus that will migrate from animals to humans.
So if you hear all the woo-ha, kind of like Ebola, understand that the lifestyle in America, we're not usually eating too many bats for soup or anything like that, unless you're Ozzy Osbourne, I guess. He's not doing very well with that idea either. So if you do happen to be one of those people that eats bats, please just step away from the radio. We can't help you. But otherwise, for the rest of us, understand, as we go to McDonald's and Burger King and all the other food places we go, they usually don't serve bat.
Well, and the compounding problem. This is really interesting because the compounding problem to this reveals just really how at risk we are in our daily life, not to be, crazy about this, but the potential exists. In the 1400, 1500, 1600, the Black Plague of Europe and whatnot, where millions of people died, the transmission of the disease is now and was then from person to person. And so it would move from town to town. In researching, and Gabriel and I talking before the show, there's a story about 3 college students from Yunnan in China who are college students in Boston. And after the Christmas break, like every college kid on the planet, got on a plane and flew back to college. And they showed up in Boston, and they've now been checked 3 ways from sideways, trust me when I tell you. But, they were able to get on a plane and fly a third of the way around the world, and had they been infected and had it been a problem, we would have had an outbreak in Boston. There's also a story of a professional woman in the medical field who was in that part of the world doing unrelated work, who came home and had a couple days off before she went back to work, was sitting around the house, the apartment, got a fever, had heard the news stories, realized, oops, maybe, and she was smart enough to know not to go to the emergency room. She called the local medical folks and said, here's who I am, where I was.
Send hazmat.
What I did, and, this needs to be checked. And they sent the team to her home, and she is self-quarantined
like E.T.
in her home until her symptoms pass and she's not medically ill, but she was communicable. And so, it isn't that we should be afraid of all this sort of stuff. It's just that we need to be aware of the fact. It's real easy, by the way, to make jokes about, if Trump would build the wall, we wouldn't have these problems.
Well, these people flew in, sir. They flew in.
Right.
Like a bat.
But part of, our immigration and control standards are where people come from.
We have been spared so much to think of the disease that can be brought in on these planes with just the passengers carrying its stuff. I mean, America is truly blessed that we don't have more going on all the time. So it's really pretty miraculous, I would say, that we've survived this long with plane loads of people and boat loads of people, literally, coming in from all over the world with whatever they had over there, trying to get in our ports and our airports.
Yeah, it's easy to throw rocks at the CDC and make fun of them in Atlanta, but they really do an amazing job. And it's one of those things where you can't win because all it takes is one oops and all of a sudden.
So if you have the thought, maybe I should go eat bat tonight, no, don't do it. Step away from the bat. Now, also, real quick, we do want to touch on today the hearings continued on with this impeachment. You've heard of that impeachment thing, haven't you?
What?
That impeachment thing?
What?
Yeah, exactly. Like you might lose a crap about it. But anyway, the media has nothing else to talk about. So 24/7, that's all you get heard. The ratings have gone substantially down because people are like, forget it.
I was making a joke, but here's what's really interesting about how the impeachment hearings are going. Whether it's a 50-50 country, 50% of everybody, thinks Trump's great. 50% of everybody thinks Trump's the evil. It doesn't matter. What's really, truly interesting is, remember that the media is only selling clickbait, whether you agree with their spin on the news or not.
Yeah, advertising.
Their agenda is advertising, selling it. But what's really telling is that the galleries in the Senate are empty. If you plan your summer vacation today to go be a tourist in D.C., you need to book and plan your trip to visit the House or the Senate to sit in the visitors' spectating gallery to watch the House in session. You have to plan in advance. The seats are limited, and as we speak, I'm sitting here with a pass to the House gallery in my pocket. I will, if you go to porchtalkradio.com, when we post this show, I'll stick a video clip of what a House pass looks like. But the gallery's empty in the Senate. That tells you that, people are, it's a dog and pony show, and people on both sides are, pretty much kind of fed up with the the mess. Let's move it along. Let's get it done.
And you know, they actually cut it short today because they just had facts. They didn't have theater to show that the Republicans are very serious about it. And a couple of things specifically to be aware, realizing that the president enjoys a presumption of innocence. That means that it's entirely the House manager's burden and obligation to prove their case. It's completely up to them, folks.
It's one of those beyond a reasonable doubt,
Right.
like Law and Order, the TV show, right?
Now, the president's legal team could literally say not a single word the entire trial, and if the House fails to charge an impeachable offense, which that's what's happened, and they fail to provide sufficient proof of impeachable offense, that's also happened, then constitutionally, the required legal outcome is a full acquittal. So already we know that the subpoenas that were issued out, that the Trump administration and the media said are ignored. We know that they weren't done properly. And if all you've ever heard of habeas corpus, if a thug or someone that's presumed to be a thug is picked up, they have to read them as rights. And if they don't, even if they have a video of this person doing something wrong, and they go to court, guess what? Because of a technicality, that thug will walk.
Happens all the time.
It happens all the time. So the House knew that they weren't doing it right. They have all the legal resources. They knew it. It's like you sitting at your kitchen table say, I want to subpoena my neighbor for being a fool. And you know what authority and power that has, right? Nothing. Same thing in the House.
Well, there you go. It's a different episode of Porch Talk Radio today. Eddie Adams Jr. called in from the parade. I'm the voice you rarely hear and the face you never see. I'm Tim Horton, the executive producer of Porch Talk Radio show for 10 years. Gabriel Phillips is here. Next week, be sure to join us again because we will twist Eddie's arm and get him to tell the long version of the story about the birth of the Grand Krewe de Libertalia. It really is part of Tampa's history and very interesting. So, as Eddie says,
what did you say?
Next bat time, same bat time. Same
and you know what?
station.
There's people listening that don't know what that means.
Well, that's true.
Because we're that old down the road.
We're that old.
That's
so,
right. And I always say, God bless America. Thank you all for listening, for taking time with us. And if anything made you upset, made you not sure what you're thinking about, go look it up. Talk to us next week. God bless.
And as I always say when I sign off the shows, good night, Martha, wherever you are. It's an inside joke. We'll see you next week.
I'm coming home, Lucy.
And thanks for listening to Porch Talk Radio. Bye-bye.